They not like us. They not like us. They not like
Welcome back. Welcome to the next episode of Real Dads Real Talk. Today we have another special guest, my brother, my what we want to say, dinner partner?
Yeah.
Dinner partner, Nike 6. We'll cover that in a little bit. Mr. Stephen Quander, everybody. No crowd. This man right here holds another special place kind of in my heart. And we're going to probably talk about it throughout this dialogue, that it's good to surround yourself around the right people. I think in marriages, you got to be around more married people, you know?
That's true.
You know, dads, got to be around more dads, right? It truly does take a village, and I know you're going to hit on the village a little bit later. And this episode, you know, is probably going to hit some people near and dear to the heart. We don't do anything scripted here. We just shoot it. We just shoot the stuff. And Stephen has kind of been through some things, and through his trials and tribulations, via as a dad, as a husband, it has made me a better dad. It has made me a better husband. You know, his wife's experiences has made Priya a better wife and a better mom. And it's just a dope experience. But Stephen, if you could, please introduce yourself, sir.
Outstanding. Stephen Quander, Jr. There's three of us all together, of course, senior, and then my son, who is the third. I guess proud dad, you know, proud husband. I guess on the business side, you know, I run a business unit for Nike here on the East Coast.
Hence all the Nike drip. Shout out to the free advertisement, Nike.
Here on the East Coast. I'm also a member of Jacob's Ladder. I serve as the chief of staff. You know, you gotta give back where you can. So, you know, that's a little bit of me.
All right.
A little bit of me.
So you open it up. I mean, what do you think is the most important role for you out of all the ones that you've kind of listed?
So it's changed over the years, right?
Okay.
You know, when we first started out in the game, the most important thing was kind of my career, right? And my thinking with that was, you know, man got to provide, right? Man got to provide. If a man
Provide is literally probably right. Probably the thing we keep hearing most from men is provide. You know, I think we're gonna, you know, Chrissy, I think we're gonna have to figure out a question to ask on. Is that a thing that we got to do for every man is provide, you know?
So I'll say for me, I tell people this all the time, right? So I'm a father who was raised by a father who was raised by his father, right?
Okay.
So you get it gets passed down from generation to generation. I only kind of know what I see. We raised in what we see, right?
Right.
So each generation for me, it was, all right, you know, great-granddad, he you know what I'm saying, he worked. That's what he did. You know what I'm saying? My granddad in the country, he tilled a farm. You know what I'm saying? He tilled that farm all day. He come inside. He didn't really do too much parenting. His job was to make sure everybody was fed, right?
Okay.
Great grandma, she did that thing. As the generations came down, those things changed, but one of the themes was that providing thing. Like, I was lucky that I grew up in a household where I was fortunate enough to have a dad who was electromechanical technician, right?
A what?
An electromechanical technician, right? So you got engineers, right?
Right.
And then you got electromechanical technicians. They're the people who kind of put the hands on. They can do all the things the engineering do, but, you know, they like to play around with the toys a little bit more.
Okay.
But that afforded us a special kind of upbringing, right? You know, my mom ain't really had to work.
Grew up privileged?
Yeah, I ain't gonna hold you. When I was younger, that was something that sometimes they try to make you feel ashamed for that, right?
Yeah,
but
especially in the African American community,
Right.
You weak if you grew up privileged.
Right, exactly. But as I traversed through the world, I realized that was more of a strength, right? You can look at life two different ways, right? There are people that tell you like, oh, you know, I grew up hungry, so I never want to have that feeling again,
Yeah,
right?
my pops.
You know what I'm saying? But I grew up never hungry, so I don't know what that feeling is, and I don't want to feel it.
Right.
So you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you can pull the same things from both sides of the tracks, if that makes sense. So that's how I used to look at it, right? It was about provision, providing. Again, and you don't know nothing until you get into it, right?
Right.
And then I get into it. I have my first children, and it changes a little bit. You know that you need to provide for them in a stable household, but it changes, right? It's more than just money.
Finally, you hit on it, right?
It's stability, right? It's putting together a culture for the household, rules, ground rules, trying to teach kids the right things, like, and then also providing that for the household itself. So including the wife, like, all right, what's our mission? What do we stand for? What are we going to do? And you know, I was married before my current marriage, so you know, it's trial and error, right? You learn things, right? My first marriage, I didn't do that thing right, you know, because I was learning on the job, right? So I didn't necessarily go into it with a mission, right?
Right.
I have no set goals, you know. All right, I seen the Cosby Show. I guess it's supposed to look something like that. I kind of seen what my parents did, but you know, they didn't necessarily spell it out or set the rules. You just see what you see through the eyes of a child. But then when you grow up to become an adult, you don't realize all the things that happen
holistic
behind
view.
it. Right. You know what I'm saying? You be like, man, all right, when daddy was sitting at the table rubbing his temples with the calculator, doing the bills, like, I ain't realized what that stress was until I got into it.
Right.
You know, when mama was like, man, I'm tired, I done cooked 7 days in a row. I ain't understand that stress, because as a kid, I'm like, we got to eat, mama and daddy went here, da-da-da-da. So you don't think about those things. So it ebbs and it flows and it changes, right? And you know, I go through my first marriage, that thing crashes, blows up.
Good thing you had a parachute.
Oh, man, I had a wonderful parachute.
Clearly.
I had a wonderful parachute. My wife, Keela, is an amazing woman, right?
Shout out to my shot woman. You know.
She is an amazing woman. We've known each other for over 20 years.
Okay.
We actually met in high school, which was crazy.
Right.
At the lockers. Well, here's what actually happened.
Oh man.
Here's what actually happened. Once upon a time, I was the corps commander for Duval Air Force ROTC, right?
You?
Yeah.
Corps?
Yeah.
That's why you got the bald head?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Look. We vibe on things, you know what I'm saying, for a reason, right? So I'm in my class, you know, doing my thing. We about to do roll call, and in walks this freshman to the wrong classroom. Everybody looking at her like, what? She's confused.
Right.
She's scared. You know, this is the wrong class, but that was the first time we ever saw each other.
Right.
We get her to the right class, you know, hey, freshman over here, Alpha Flight, going the other side of the hall. And from there, we ended up going through that year. I graduated, went off to college, and we ended up reconnecting again when I got out of school. Ended up running each other in the food court of Wheaton Plaza at the Popeyes. I mean, I don't eat Popeyes no more, but you know, when you're younger, you could do those things.
Right. I still eat Popeyes.
Right, man. You know what I'm saying? Hey, man, I'm trying to keep it together.
Right.
So from there, we kind of just connected, right? We exchanged numbers. We began a friendship more than anything else. Right. So, you know, the friendship, we go through the years, we grow through the years. And I'll never forget, there was a question that she asked me when I was about to get married. And she was like, are you sure you're getting married for the right reasons?
Wait, Keela asked you.
She asked me that.
And you was about to get married to your ex-wife.
Right.
Okay.
And she was like, sure you're getting married
thickens.
for the right reasons. And I said, yeah, you know, because, you know, the reasoning I was thinking about at the time is, you know, we done gone through college, I got a job, about to have a son. You know, well, at that time, there was no Steven. But, you know, that's what they tell us, right?
Right.
You go through these cycles. You go off to school, you graduate from college, you get a good job, you marry somebody, you have a kid, and you going down the road, right? Little did I know, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't getting married for the right reasons, right?
Okay.
So as I went through and things kind of ebbed, flowed, changed, when your foundation ain't right, it gets rocky.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It gets rocky. So as we kind of traveled through that journey, both of us, myself and my ex-wife, the true things start to form. You can only, if you're not being your authentic self, it only holds up for so long, especially in a marriage. Because you can see that person every day.
A marriage will exploit your weaknesses in ways that you can't even imagine.
All the time, all the time. You know what I'm saying? And like, if you're not being your true self, then it's like being an actor that's on all times.
Right.
It's exhausting. Mm-hmm. And it ends poorly. I'd say probably 100% of the time.
Right.
So, that marriage ended. Keela was there for me as a friend in that particular place, right?
Okay.
Like, all right, man. She sees me. She understands kind of what's going on through her own history of her dad. She watched his marriage and some things of that nature. So she kind of understood, like, hey, this is what this person is going through. This is what this man is going through right now. I'll be here to listen to him, right? But you also got, at that time, 10, 15 years of history, right? Mm-hmm. And things blossom from there, right?
Right.
I like to say the universe put my person in front of me when I needed her. Mm-hmm. So that's how we kind of came together.
That's deep. All right, and we're going to, hopefully I don't dig too much into you, right? But we have transparent dialogue. So we go out once a month, guys are responsible for planning a date night. And so we went out last night, and man, we were able to pull back some layers from both sides, right? But I think that for one, that's the growth that me and my wife have, is we're able to acknowledge where we both needed growth, mistakes that we both made, and for whatever reason, right? People are going to tie that to adultery or whatever else, and that's not even the case, right? But mistakes happen even on surface level that can become bigger things down the road. Right. But I want to take you back to one of the initial things that you said when you said you were raised by your dad, that was raised by his dad, and so it passes down. Unfortunately, so does trauma. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, so does mistakes. Right. Unfortunately, so does the things that stifle growth. Right. How did that impact you as you transition into your fatherhood role into that first marriage? Yeah,
so it had a profound impact because, again, you have an idea of what you're supposed to be based on what you're seeing when you don't have experiences. Right? So you go and you're like, all right, well, my daddy did this particular thing. Not realizing, all right, it ain't, 1960 no more. It ain't 1970 no more. You know what I'm saying? My daddy went out and got his first house. That thing cost $25,000. Mm-hmm. He went there with $50 for the down payment. Life was great. My first house, we in the 200s, we in the 250s. It's a little different at the time. So, single income might not be set up for that yet. Now you're in a dual income situation. Gender roles change. Things aren't the same. And again, you're still trying to view it through, all right, this is what I saw growing up. So you're trying to do all of these things, and it might not be possible, right? So you'll find yourself sometimes getting resentful, right? Because you're like, well, hell, man, my mama, she, cooked every night and I ain't had to worry about that. Why I gotta come home and work and did it? Not really thinking to yourself, well, mama worked sometimes, she ain't really had to. She did. If mama ever wanted to quit her job, she was like, I ain't going nowhere. And we just rolled with it and figured it out. Not necessarily the case. So it's also, I think it's you trying to figure out who you are as a man,
right? Going
through those things, because again, those older generations, they start manhood a lot earlier. Mm-hmm. Great granddaddy, elementary school, that was it. That's all the school you need. You know how to till this farm? All right, bet.
Right.
You good. You don't need to know nothing else right there. At 13, you now a man. You gonna start doing man stuff. You taking care of the house. You bringing home money. You doing these things. Each generation, as we progressively get more education, that gets put off, right? Further and further and further and further. I mean, now you look at it, for example, Let's say you go through a full college education, maybe get a master's. You're 23, 24. Probably don't leave your parents' house for another 3, 4, 5 years. That pushes you out to 25, 26. You still need at least 4 or 5 years on your own to figure something out, who you are as a person. So that puts you in your 30s. It's different.
Yeah. Old times, man, like you talked about, our dads were out working, mom was home cooking and providing. There was an educational gap. There was a wealth gap, and now times have changed, where there's more working moms. Don't quote me. I'm not throwing out statistics. Just saying, right? There's more moms that are actually working than dads. There's more women having educational degrees than sometimes dads in the house, and so times have changed, like you talked about. And so gender roles is something that me and Priya have fought over, argued over, been frustrated at, and we had to work through that. Much like your wife, and we're gonna hit on it. Priya is a realtor, contractor, cricketer, executive producer for this, 2 under 2. Does everything for her brother, her baby brother, takes care of her side of the family, takes care of this side of the family. She does a lot of hats, right? She doesn't necessarily work in a brick and mortar, like a physical building that she has to go into. I do, active duty service member now in the Pentagon. I got to go inside that brick and mortar, right? So like we talked about, that removes me from being home. I'm not there even though I wake up first thing in the morning, get my daughter ready, get Major ready, drop them off at school, double back. Now I'm at work, then go back and pick them up. And it's really the day is made for me, right? I don't have to make those decisions on what hat am I about to put on today. Right. I'm gonna put on a Captain Manny hat, Jacob's Ladders hat, right, and then I'm gonna go. And then I'm gonna make sure the kids are good. My wife, I think, sometimes, people feel like, because they're at home, they should be able to do it all. Right. They got a lot going on. One, you got to understand postpartum for those that are just having, had kids or just recently had kids. Understand that postpartum is real. Right. But also understand that they're trying to navigate their own space and do things on them. But where me and Pri kind of got into it a couple of times, because she would be like, I live in this house with 2 men. I ain't touching the trash can. I'd be like, bet. My wife's not touching that trash. See these pots and pans? I ain't touching them. Right. We gonna eat today, or you gonna order DoorDash? But I ain't doing it. And so such a tit for tat, right? Such a negative mentality to have when, at the end of the day, I think you just gotta understand that both are out conquering the day. And we call each other king and queen, right? We divide and conquer. And so there was something we needed to communicate. We had to communicate why, right? And so we discussed, it was like, why won't you touch trash? Well, I ain't grow up that way. Okay, cool. I can understand. My wife should not have to touch the trash. Right. And there's been times that I'll come home and trash been taken out. Because she's like, you know what? He left early, trash is filled, Major's at practice. Just take trash out. Wasn't that big of a deal. Right. And I go home and cook and clean. It's bigger than just the roles, it's the teamwork. It's the way I see it is, how can I take care of my wife? How can I take something off of her plate? So that way she can have, I don't care if it's an hour to cricket or an hour to do whatever else. If I can do a task to take it off her plate, I'm going to go do it. And so there was times that I would come home and a task wouldn't be done. I'd be like, dang, man, that didn't be going on there. And I'm going to come home, and I'll be like, and then that creates this tension. I'm not talking. And she's like, hey, boo. And I'm just like, hey, because I see bottles in the sink or I see something and it's like, man, is it that deep that, you don't want to do said whatever because of a task that wasn't done and complete. And so gender roles, man, I think that's something people got to discuss, before they walk down that aisle and understand that, gender roles, they don't exist in our house. Right. We have leaders in our house. And if you see something, like take care of it. Now there's things that of course I got you. Like as a male, I got you. But I just caution people when they say gender roles because it's such a slippery slope. And you can't mention one thing if then you don't want to be like, oh, well,
Right.
it's different. Why would I touch well, it's like, okay, well, why would I cook? If we going back to old times, why would I do any of that?
Right.
Especially if you're home all day.
So I think the thing that you hit on, partnership, right?
Right.
Where I think we mess up the most in like our relationships, marriages, we don't look at it as a partnership and we look at it as a competition, right? Mm-hmm. So, all right, if I'm doing this, you got to do this. And once you start keeping track, trying to keep score, that's when all the other stuff creeps in. You also hit on something earlier, hanging around, and actually the wife and I, we were talking about this last night, because we don't have a ton of people that we hang out with in a space, because when you're not hanging around like-minded people, it's hard.
You're right.
Right? Trying to explain your thought process to somebody that doesn't necessarily understand
They can't resonate.
Right. So it's like, all right, I'm explaining this thing. Your whole makeup is different from what I'm used to and how I am. So you're not gonna get it. You know what I'm saying? Now I feel like I'm explaining myself. And I don't need to explain myself. So we just not even gonna be in that space. So that's why we enjoy our time hanging out with y'all, because it's like looking at ourselves a little further back in the journey.
Right.
We're like, oh yeah, we remember that. Remember we used to talk about those things? Like, all right, cool. And it reminds us, of ourselves, right? Because again, 20 years of history, that's a lot of history. You go through your ups and downs in 20 years, like you're bound to. It's just what it is. So that partnership piece is huge. Like, we don't necessarily have gender roles in our household, right? Like, whatever needs to get done gets done. I mean, she ain't touching the trash. Like, I'm the trash guy. It is what it is. Like, that doesn't really bother me. But I think it's more so like, all right, what needs to get done? What needs to be tackled today? Right. And then it's the understanding piece, right? So I'm a little different in that I'm kind of a hybrid, right? I do have to go into work sometimes, but a lot of times I don't. You know what I mean? I have my days that I work from home. So trying to putting yourself in that space when you're working from home, like, all right, one, when you're working from home, you gotta be a self-starter, right? Ain't nobody there to tell you what to do. My wife as well, realtor, CEO of Accentuate Your Life, virtual assistants, founder of Kristopher Village, a nonprofit, CEO of By Design, interior design. Like, these are all things that require you to figure out what you're going to do that day. You have to figure out what your priorities are. You have to prioritize and juggle all these things. So where I used to mess up was, again, regimented. Like, all right, I'm going to wake up at 4 o'clock. I'm going to hit the Peloton. I'm going to work out. After I work out, I'm going to get the kids up and together, get them lunches, get everybody out the door, walk to the bus stop. All right, cool. And I'm in the car, I'm headed to wherever I need to head to. Or I'm back at the computer, I'm doing these particular things. All right, I'm gonna stop at 10 o'clock because I got to break in between calls. I might throw this laundry in here, da-da-da-da.
Right.
I've set my routine, right? Not realizing, one, I have a little bit more autonomy. If somebody calls me or whatever, I don't necessarily have to take that call on the moment.
Right.
But, they business owners. That's money on the phone.
Right.
I got to stop. I got to pick it up. So I might have want to do this thing at 10 o'clock, but at 9:57, the money rang. So I got to pick it up. Now I might get tied up in this call. None of that stuff gets done. Now it's, let's say, 2 o'clock. Oh, man, I forgot to do that. Okay, cool. Now you're moving on to the next task. Who comes in the door at 4, 5 o'clock? Me. Now I'm like, why is laundry over here? You know what I'm saying? What? Like your thing's pots and pans, my thing's laundry. I hate laundry.
Right.
I guess it drives me crazy.
It's man, you said prioritization. We were in church maybe about 4 weeks ago. Like, me and my wife, we in sync. You know, like the growth, like of even us, for me to be able to sit here and share truthful things that me and my wife have struggled at. You know, that's where we are. It's like, let's talk about it.
Right.
Tell the world.
Right.
You know, let us inspire people like we continue to want to do. We were in church and we had talked like, hey, why do sometimes we feel like, you know, when you come home, like our communication is stagnant? And the pastor was like, you know, when marriages come to me and they talk about they have communication problem, and he hears them speak, and he's like, you don't have a communication problem, you have a prioritization problem. And me and my wife looked at each other like, oh man. Like, it's crazy. We have conversations and then we sit down in church and the pastor's literally saying, I hear you. And this is y'all problem. We got to understand that our queens are equipped differently. You are a military household, being regimented, being structured it is our life, right? Not our way of life. And so that's second nature for us to be so regimented. But even in regimented environments and ways of life, you have blind spots. You make mistakes, you make errors. And sure, we can make sure we're always on time, but there's still mistakes to be made. And that is okay, right? We then look at our wives and be like, why you ain't on time? Why you not ready? You know, I told Priya, I was like, hey, we got dinner with the Quanders at 7. We got to be walking out the door at 6:30. I told her that at like 9 o'clock in the morning, just so it's like she knew, hey, walking out the door at like 6:30. But I say that because my wife is more so free flowing. Right? Even though she wears all of these hats, she's like free flowing and she's adaptable, right? And that is one of the things that I've taken away from her that I appreciate the most is like, it is okay to be free flowing and free, man. Like, again, one of the biggest mistakes that I've made in Major's life parenting him was causing him to be so disciplined, so regimented. You know, that he was fearful he couldn't make a mistake and all that type stuff. Like, be a kid, man, make errors. Oh, man. And so when I started to realize that I was trying to force, you know, this amount of structure and discipline on somebody, first of all, she's not military. I'm the first military person, so this is all brand new. You know, for her, she's not that. Right. Accept her for who she is. Now, you can communicate, you know, how she can improve certain things so she doesn't create so certain failures don't happen along her way, or, you know, she doesn't double book herself, or she doesn't find enough time. I can find a way to communicate, but how we communicate that? Because again, our women are type A's, and the moment they feel like we telling them something that
it's not gonna work.
Push back one-on-one, right? And she gonna let me know, like, hey, I'm not your soldiers, not your troopers, you know. So again, part of that, Jason, you know, I feel like, but when we do prioritize, like, and I let her know, like, hey, priorities for me is ... And when we set those priorities, when we talk about them at night, when we talk about them in the morning, that's when our days are like, we divide and conquer. You know, and then when I, you know, found myself in Hawaii, I was coming home to lobster tails, stuffed lobster tails at that, you know what I mean? And it was a day. And so again, we were able to kind of figure some of that stuff out. Right. I'm going to kind of shift gears here because I know we're getting a little deep into the episode, but I looked down at your tattoo, and I know that there's an experience for you that kind of altered you as a father, right, and 100% probably altered you as a husband as well. So, and one of the great things that your wife has done was made Kristopher's Village. So, right, you know, let's get into it.
So yeah, Kristopher's Village. Founded because of our late son, Kristopher Vincent, who is forever 4. Kristopher is like he was our little angel, right? Out of all the chaos and I guess just disrest when we were getting together, right? Because, you know, people kind of look at it like I was getting out of a marriage. You know, they're like, oh, y'all getting together too fast, blah, blah, blah. But not knowing the whole history, right? Right. So we have Kristopher, and if he was here right now and you can meet him right now, he's just like this ball of light. energy. Like everybody who ever met Kristopher automatically had a smile. Like even before he could talk, it was just like the baby you see, and it's just like, oh boy, that got good energy. Something just about that little boy that's amazing, right? So our son, he was diagnosed with DIPG, diffuse intrinsic panteangioma. It's a very aggressive form of brain cancer, right? 100% fatality rate. There's no cure. There's no treatment for it. For the majority of the people, once they're visibly diagnosed with it, you have about 6 months. That's it. So Kristopher's forever 4. So once he was diagnosed, for us and me especially, like the world changed. The bottom kind of fell out of life because how we talked about earlier, provider, protector, right? You fix things as a father. That's what you do, right? Your people, they come to you with a problem, you work it out, right? You're gonna figure out a way. And this was an area where I felt like powerless, right? Smart guy, but I'm not gonna be able to get a medical degree and figure out how to beat cancer in 6 months. Like, timetable too short, right? So that experience itself is traumatic because, so I'll put it to you like this. This is how it kind of all started. We were going on a walk as a family. We were going on a walk as a family, and we noticed Kristopher seemed like he was having a little bit of trouble walking, right? We coupled that with he used to tilt his head. He started tilting his head to watch TV, right? And we thought maybe, maybe he needs glasses, we're gonna go get him checked out. So we took him to the doctor's primary care, and I tell him the things, and he's like, oh, probably not nothing, but I want to schedule a follow-up. I want you to go to doctors in Shady Grove, right? And this is also during COVID, right? So only one parent can go on all these appointments. So it's not a group thing, it's just one parent, right? I tend to do the majority of taking the kids to the doctors. It's just easier for me. Like if they get a shot, if they get stabbed, they get hurt, like I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Mom, she don't want to see that. She don't want to feel, see her baby
Priya
in
laughing
pain.
right now, knowing, yep, that's Matt's duty.
She don't want to see him in pain. So we take him there. Should I say I take him there, and they do a scan, right? And the nurse comes back, and she's like, I need you to talk to the doctor. And I'm like, all right, well, where the doctor at? Bring him in. Nah, he on the phone. What you mean he on the phone? Like, why the doctor ain't here? What you need to talk to me about? I just need you to stay right here. We're going to bring you the phone. We're going to talk to the doctor. So I get on the phone. Mind you, I'm still here playing with my son, what's going on. Mr. Quandar, we need you to bring your son to Children's Hospital in D.C. immediately. For what? Oh, it's just something that we need to talk to you in private. Why you can't tell me now?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to shake the table.
Yeah, but he on the phone.
Right.
So it's like I can't get him because he on the phone. So, I'm trying to calm down, I'm trying not to think the worst. All right, so I call Mom, right? I call her, I'm like, yeah, I gotta go over to, they want us to take Chris to the doctors, and imagine trying to have that conversation over the phone with Mom, trying to explain stuff that you don't have all the answers for. Because all the information you was given is he needs to come. So again, it's during COVID, so they was like, so we have that discussion. I'm like, hey, what I'm saying? Mom gotta come too. Okay, we can waive it. Now I know it's something. Because you breaking the whole COVID protocol. You talking about both parents can come. So I go home, I get my wife, we drive down to doctors, we go, they take us up to the 4th floor. They take you into this room. It's ridiculous, right? So once you see the room, you already know something's up, right? They got a lady in here with a ukulele. They got, oh, this is for Kristopher so he can. And both of us are very to the point people, right? What you trying to say and what you need to tell us, and hurry up and tell us so that we can go on about figuring out how we fix this thing, right?
Right.
Me in your mind, I'm thinking it's something serious. I know it's something serious, but I'm not thinking it's something that can't be fixed, right? So they tell us, you know, hey, your son has this aggressive form of brain cancer. You know, at that time, they're trying to give you a lot of hope. And, you know, we have these clinical trials and you can do this and you can do that. And the world stops right there, right? You know, you're sitting there, you're listening to them. After that, we called a family meeting, right? Of our entire family, because we've received this diagnosis. They telling us what's going on, and we got to figure out, you know, how to tell everybody, right? So I get there, and you know, we go to tell the family, and like this might have been probably the first time in my life like I broke, right? Because I'm sitting there in front of my whole family, and I'm trying to explain to them that, you know, this wonderful soul is essentially on his way out, right? And as I was trying to get the words out, like I just start crying, right? And I just can't stop crying, and I can't get the words out. And Keela steps up in that moment, and she gets the words out. She tells the family what's going on. She explains to them, you know, what we have to go through for the next 6 months. The first 30 days was chemo every day. I got to drive them. They have to do surgery. They biopsy, cut a hole in my son's head, put a hole in his chest, put a port in. You're trying to explain this to a 4-year-old. You know, you're doing the best you can. All right, you like Iron Man. All right, you a superhero. You know, you're trying to explain to him his condition, because what happens with the condition is as it grows, it essentially strangles your spine, right? Your spinal cord. So it starts to slowly cut off the ability of your body's functions. So, you know, you got this 4-year-old that's running around hitting punching bags, doing all the things to, now his arm doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? So he's lost use of his arm. Then he loses use of his legs. Now he can't walk. So he can't run, he can't play, he can't do anything with his brothers and sisters. And you go through the journey, right? And we met so many beautiful people on the journey. It's how we met the Jordans. You know, Kristopher got to experience so many different things in life. Full parade, about a Corvette club. He became an honorary police officer. So many things, right? So many joyous occasions, and so many people were brought into our life through Kristopher's journey. But at the same time, it was super stressful on my wife and myself.
Right.
Me, from a standpoint of, all right, so if I can't fix it, what else can I do? All right, I gotta put my head down to work, right? Gotta go to work, you know what I'm saying? Because the thing is, even with insurance, first surgery was $72,000. For a terminally ill patient, $72,000, that's the first bill you get. And the bill come while you still going through all the stuff. You know what I'm saying? You like, like, I got a little bread saved up, but 72, baby, ain't nobody I wasn't just sitting on 72. We didn't think this was gonna happen. We thought we had insurance. Felt like Denzel and John Q. I got the insurance. Like, I don't understand. So it put my wife and I in like a tough situation, because what was going on through that particular time was, again, it's still COVID. So after that initial thing, they went back to the only one person can come.
Oh, man.
So I'm taking him to his appointments at doctors, but since he's terminally ill, they also prescribed him hospice. So now you got 2 sets of doctors, right?
Right.
And mom's at home, so she's talking with hospice. I'm going to the appointments and going back to work, so I'm talking to doctors at Sibley, right? And that was kind of like a first crack in our communication, right?
Was the 2 different experiences you were living?
Right. So it creates like a feeling where you're second guessing each other. Because if I'm talking to you and she's talking to this person and you're telling me these things and then they're telling us opposite, and then we get to fighting because, well, no, they said this. Well, why they giving them this drug? Why you let them do that? Why you ain't listening to me? All this while still trying to take care of Kristopher.
Yeah, you gotta you gotta really adjust some hats, man. Because even though 100% fatality,
100%.
my son gonna be the one that show it can be done.
You know what I'm saying?
We gonna figure it the F out.
Right.
Like, no questions asked, full stop.
Right.
And then you know, I can't even put myself in that role. But to think of a mom trying to comfort her kid, you know, through something that just, I don't even know how you change those roles and those hats. Like, we just talked this in the previous guest about being able to be adaptable and be versatile. I just don't know how you be able to change from, hey, there's hope, to I'm trying to comfort you.
So you do it because you have to, right? Like, you don't want to, but you do it because you have to. And as you watch it progress, some of that reality sets in, right? Because when you first end up, hey, we're going to make it. We're going to be the one, right? We're going to make this thing happen. But you slowly start to see things slip away, right? You know, and again, Kristopher, beautiful soul, he adapted. He started playing with, you know, his iPad. He's right-handed. He switched over. He left-handed because that's the one that he has. So that's why all the tattoos that are attributed to him are on the left side. So they'll always remember, like,
His weakness became his strength.
It became his strength. So you also draw inspiration from him because, you know, he'll start saying, Daddy, one day he was like, Daddy, I'm gonna walk again. Yes, son, you gonna walk again. And, you know, we gonna go to therapy. He had different names for each hospital, right? That was the exercise hospital. So we go to the exercise hospital, we trying to work it out. We trying to get you strength back. All the while kind of knowing in the back of your head as a father, you know, as an adult, like, this ain't about to happen. But I can't show you that, and I can't tell you that. Because if I can't fix it, I at least need to be able to provide you hope. Right? I at least need to be able to provide stability to keep you from being scared. Because you're 4. You're trying to figure this out. Like, you know that something's changing. Now you're on steroids. Your physical appearance is changing. You know, you went from being regular Kristopher to, we would call him Big Kristopher. Because, you know, a couple of things happened. We put him on steroids. He's also, you know, getting closer to his 5-year-old. So he grew. So it's like, you grew, but you're also losing, you know, use of facilities in your faculties, I should say. And then there was nights where, you know, it's called like your syncopatic rhythm, right? Because of the different drugs and treatments he was on, his got thrown off. So for me, there's nights where I went 24, I went 36 hours, I went 48 hours, no sleep. Because I'm up with him, because he not asleep. And he can't really explain to you in those moments, but like his head might be hurting, you know, other aches and pains. He might be having phantom feelings of his limbs, like all these different things that he can't explain, understand. And sometimes it would manifest in, I want to go to Target at 3 o'clock in the morning.
You better took him to Target.
You know what I'm saying? You got to try to find one. You in the car, you driving.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He might fall asleep in the car before you can get to the Target. Then I made a mistake one time. I drove home without You didn't take me to Target. Kristopher, you fell asleep. Ah! Matt just started screaming. He learned amazing curse words, and we don't know where he learned them joints from during that particular time. He would just like, he curse you out up and down.
Right.
And you're like, what is this? You're like, but are you aging? Are you going through your entire life cycle in this particular moment? So, you know, it was hard. Like, we're still not 100%. We're a lot better than we were.
Right.
We used to have days where we would go down the rabbit hole, right? And even in Kristopher's village and helping others, it's hard sometimes because we're watching parents go through the same cycle, right? They got that hope in the beginning. They're like, yeah, my child's gonna be the one that's gonna get through. And you're like, I hope for, and I pray that your child is, but the likelihood is not gonna be that. And then you watch where they go through and they start to lose things, right? And then you have some parents that are in denial. So like they're still trying to do stuff with their kids that they can't do. We're like, but your child can no longer swallow. Like you gotta think about this, right? You gotta be rational. You gotta be the adult. And then there's a clinical trial, right? That I'd say most people opt into. The unfortunate part about their trial is, usually once you do the trial, it speeds up the process. It causes swelling on the brain. It's a experimental process that essentially introduces red blood cells, kind of like a platelet therapy. But essentially right now the issue with it is it's too aggressive. So it causes swelling and it actually does the reverse of what you needed to do. But yeah, the strength of your bond is tested as husband and wife in that space.
How did you find the strength to start the process to repair it?
So Madison Jean, Kristopher's sister, and sometimes we say our twin, and sometimes we say, the Lord kind of knew, because we had Kristopher and we thought that was gonna be it for us. We was like, man, we bet we got that one bit, we good. And then Madison Jean comes along, right? For us, it was kind of rallying around Madison, like, understanding like it's not fair to her if we don't show up, because she also lost her brother. All of our kids, they also lost a brother. So it's not fair to them if we don't show up as parents. Because, there was a part in there where real live, one day, and this was when it was really, really rocky, my wife walked up to me and she was like, when all this done, I want a divorce. And I said, well, she let me know what day you want to move out. Man, we straight like that. That's how it went with us. Right. And, we was in that place. I think we probably didn't talk to each other for maybe 2-3 weeks after that. We still living we ain't talking to each other. And I feel like there was a day where like Madison might have came in and like hugged both our legs or something like that. And, it's the little things, right?
Yeah, kids can sense.
Right. Something ain't right. And you start to try to repair and build, and you try to find purpose, right? Keela starts Kristopher's Village. I start to help with Kristopher's Village. And we just built from there with like our village, to say. And that kind of helped us find our way back.
So your son has the heart of you, right? He's a fighter. If I can't do it with my right, I'm gonna do it with my left. Right. I'm gonna figure it out, right? They say if you can't, run then walk. You can't walk then crawl. Mm-hmm. You can't crawl, you better claw. Yeah. But whatever you do, just keep moving forward. But you understanding, it's just not in your deck of cards, right, son. So, how did you come to grips with accepting something that your son just could not and would not kind of accept? So
it is very hard, right? And it's a process, because you always want to have some hope, right? And again, like you don't want your child to lose hope. So if I'm being honest, I created kind of like a fantasy world, right? Mm-hmm. Kristopher's a superhero. We're gonna figure this out. When I'm talking to him and he's telling me how hopeful he is, I'm locked into that. I'm going to support it, right? Because I understand how important it is to at least keep his spirit up in this moment, right? He doesn't know what's coming. And he shouldn't have to know what's coming. That's too much for a 4-year-old to bear.
Right.
It's too much for anybody to bear, to be honest. Like, if somebody told me today, Steve, you got 2 weeks, don't tell me that. Let me ride this thing out, and we'll figure out the rest. So you got to look at it that way in order not to feel guilty or feel like you're lying to your child, right? Because you can feel really guilty about it, because everything in you wants to be like, no, son, this is not going to happen. Because you know you've already accepted that, but that's selfish of you to put that on them. So you figure out different mechanisms, right? Like, you also got to think about your other children. And they don't realize it as well because we haven't told them. You know, they're still kids.
Right.
They might be older, but they're still kids. And regardless of what you tell a child, they still gonna have hope as well. You know, my oldest son Steven came up to me one day. He said, "Daddy, I prayed about it, and Kristopher's gonna be okay." Yes, son. You're not gonna give him the God has a plan speech.
Yeah.
Not at 13, 12. Not ready for it yet.
Right. So you were seeing it from the lens of children, seeing it from the lens of a dad, seeing it from the lens of a husband, all the while Keela seeing it from the complete different perspective. So people handle things differently, right? And I think ultimately our upbringing shapes us for that.
Correct.
We handle trials and tribulations different. We handle death differently. Me and my wife 100% see death differently, right? She lost, her father passed back in February. Two distinctly two different types of passes here, right? While you, like, what was that kind of experience as one, you're still in this, hey, we're gonna figure it out. And your wife is like, I just wanna provide comfort. So y'all on.
It was, like I said, that began like the crack, right? In communication between us, because she's very matter of fact, right? Once they told her what it was, she's like, this is what it is. We just need to make sure he's comfortable until the end, right? And I'm like, I feel you, I agree with you, but you know, I still got a little bit of hope. And again, I'm still gonna try to provide hope. And she's like, I'm gonna make sure that my son is comfortable all the way to the end. So that's where you start to kind of butt heads, right?
Right.
Because technically you got the same, well, actually you don't have the same mission anymore. You know? Like, you know where it's going, but you don't have the same mission. You're operating on two different sets of orders. So, you know, if, for example, in our case, the doctors at hospice would be like, all right, Kristopher needs to take these 5 drugs so that he's not in pain. And I'm like, nah, he don't, because he hasn't said he's in pain. And they're like, well, you know, we know, we want to be comfortable, right? Then we ran into an issue where those drugs started to interfere with the drugs, treatment drugs, and we had to have like this whole powwow of all the doctors.
Yeah, we had to have come to Jesus moment
right, to figure out, you know, what's going on. But mind you, the amount of stress that caused between me and my wife was astronomical, man. Like, it was a thing, because again, it's that trust piece, right?
Yeah, I don't know too many marriages that's going overcome that. Like, me and Priya would be on some thing, only because the love that we have for our kids and our way of executing kind of how we go about it. I'm a be just like you. I am not going to accept that. That is not, like, my son gonna bury me. My daughter gonna bury me. I am not going to bury my child. Full stop.
Yeah.
And my wife will be like, you know, let's comfort, let's create these memories. And I'm like, we create these memories once we fix. And what that's gonna do is almost be like, yo, you don't care about me as, you know, your wife, your partner, the mom. I'm trying to do, and you're just bypassing because you're so stuck in your ways.
You know what I mean?
And you're not even accepting reality of the situation.
You get that tunnel vision. So like when you're talking to others, right? You're not seeing that. You now have gone into like dad mode, mission mode. All right, this is what I have to execute. I'm gonna do these things. I'm gonna get up at this time. You're gonna go to this appointment. You're gonna do these things. You're gonna take your his iPad had timers on him for when he was supposed to take his different medications. Man, his timer would go off and he'd be like, "Time for Kristopher's medicine," and he would take it. And it tasted horrible, and he yuck. But he would never not take it.
Right.
Never not take it. Time for it. Every time he would tell you, it's time for medicine, it's time for medicine. Yuck. Never not take it. So that whole journey changed me, right? Like going through that journey with Kristopher and understanding like what it takes to get through something of that nature. Because my wife would tell you, for the most part, that was probably the first time I had a trial or tribulation in my life, right? I was like 35. You know what I'm saying? But I had never really gone through nothing. My wife, on the other hand, she had been through a lot of things, right? So, thus, why she was more like, all right, we're gonna go through the comfort, you know, I ain't never really been through anything. I'm like, what you talking about? Nah, we gonna figure this out. It's gonna be fixed. Like, this little guy is gonna make it. Like, I don't care what's going on.
Right.
So, you know, it changed me.
Right.
I mean, it changed both of us, but it changed me a lot.
Right. What would you say is that one memorable or critical moment that was able to shift you all back into the same page? Like for a family that's out there dealing with it, what would you say it's like execute, do it, that got y'all back on the same page?
So we didn't get back on the same page, unfortunately, until after Kristopher passed, right? So after Kristopher's passed, now you're in a different mode. You're planning funeral. A funeral is a funeral. You know what I'm saying? Like, details of the funeral is gonna be what they're gonna be, but you're planning a funeral, right? Now we're back on the same mission because we've unfortunately gone through the hard part, right? And you become a little bit more connected because you're also bonding through the trauma of it all, right? You both sad. You know what I'm saying? Kristopher, we had him cremated. We had his remains put into a bear. The bear is in our house. Like, Kristopher will always be with us, right? So you bond over those things, right? And then Kristopher's Village kind of comes along, and she started it, and I wasn't with it at first. I ain't gonna hold you. Like, it wasn't my thing, but I wanted to support my wife, but also my best friend. Because you also look at it like you say, a lot of people wouldn't get through it because we had that history of friendship before that.
Yep, that's a strong foundation.
That's what allowed us to get through. You know, we remember each other from years ago and we poured into each other. We were having a conversation today and we were talking about, if you look at our relationship as an investment, right? We didn't put a lot into each other. We've invested a lot into each other. So it makes it that much more difficult to walk away. Even though both of us, you know, when we get to that place, we're like, all right, what you need tomorrow? Give my keys. You give me your key.
Right.
We don't really know. We know it's not gonna happen.
The inspiration that you provide to countless people, I mean, even the people that you see, is to fight through the friction, right? There's so many relationships that I've seen that where people run it right at the first point of friction.
Right.
And I think it's because they don't have that strong foundation.
Right.
That they didn't have the years of that. Me and my wife we've had our points of friction. We just refuse to say we're going to settle for that.
Right.
Like, where we are now, God forbid we ever lose a child, would get through it because of the example that y'all have provided. Like, it is probably the hardest thing that I think any man would probably have to deal with is to bury a child.
Bro, it's no way to explain it, right? It's no way to explain the emotions, the feelings of burying a child, right? One of the things my wife and I, we talk about all the time is like, when we talk to a lot of people about it, probably one of the most frustrating thing is like, you be like, oh, you know, we'll tell them about Kristopher, you lost a child, and they'll be like, oh, I lost my grandma. So? You know what I'm saying? It is so from a standpoint of like, your grandma lived a long life, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to relate to understand or appreciate somebody's journey, right?
Right.
But as people, we always try to relate, right?
100%.
Like, oh,
knock it off.
Like, you don't need to do that, right? Unless you come to me and tell me that you lost your child, we can't relate on the same pain. You know, I've lost my child, I've lost my father, right? My father passed from cancer shortly after Kristopher. They were going through their cancer journey together. I was dealing with both of those things at the same time.
Damn.
I'm watching the man who raised me, that's the strongest man I know, and the child that I brought into this world, that's the most one. You know what I'm saying? I'm at the same time. They going to chemo at the same time. They on the same schedule. I'm taking, once Kristopher finished his, I'm taking my father. Like, I'm taking all these things
Right.
at the same time.
And you had no outlet at that time.
No. Like, you create things, you know. I was working out a lot, you know what I'm saying? You know, it's great.
Right.
You run yourself into the ground. You don't sleep. You work. You go to different outlets. You know, that's when I focused on work. Got my biggest promotion I ever got during that time, because you focus all your energy into other things, right? Because nobody really teaches us how to deal with grief, right? I didn't get a therapist till way down the road. My wife.
Shout out to you for having a therapist.
And shout out to my wife. It was her. She forced me into it. She started seeing Mr. Marshall. Shout him out. Like, she started seeing him, and then she was like, yo, I really think you should see somebody.
Right.
Like, I still haven't dealt with I still haven't processed all my grief, all my loss. Like, I still haven't processed all of it. Like, there are times, I tell people all the time, like, yo, there are times I'll just be mad, waiting for the opportunity. You know what I'm saying? For the wrong person to say the wrong thing. Because what do you do with that? What do you do with that anger? What do you do with that rage? Like,
Right.
What do you do with it?
That's why I asked you what was your outlet.
So for me, it's like I said, it's working out.
Yes.
Boxing. Got the bag, got the heavy bag. I started pouring into myself from a therapy standpoint. I've always been like an avid reader, right? I started writing. Wrote a book. Like, you find little things. I mean, it's gonna be different for everybody, but you find little things to kind of let that out.
Right.
Pouring into, you know, your children that are still there.
Right.
Like, all right, y'all gonna be the most amazing children ever.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I will say for me, and we're similar in a way of how we look at things, like, when somebody loses life and you look at them from that perspective, you start to, you almost have to force yourself not to be angry at other people. Like, so bro, you here and you not doing nothing with yourself? Like, you're wasting the day. You're wasting the day, you're wasting your life. I can't tolerate it.
Right.
Be better, do better. Where you need help, I'll help you. But you also sometimes gotta pull that back, because everybody not ready for that journey.
Right. I just commend you for the therapy, man. I have soldiers that would benefit from therapy. I have seen people to my left and to my right that have benefit from therapy. Peers, brothers, sister, you know, family, trauma. But therapy is almost like a forbidden fruit. You can't talk about it because you're perceived as weak. And for you to endure all of what you endured, 2 cancer cases going on at the same time, wife friction, you didn't choose to do any sort of violence or destroy other things out of your own hurt. You sought out the right avenues to get help. And that's what I would encourage anybody that's out there that has lost anyone. You know, I like you said it perfectly. You can't relate to losing a child. And somebody try to say, "Oh, I lost a grandma. I lost one too." You know, join the party. And I think that again, that's where you and I see differently, and we appreciate. And you know, just for me, just focus on the times that we have, and focus on the times that you do have with the loved ones that you have. Hug your loved ones. Never let an opportunity go by. And for me, that's something that I am trying to do as a husband. And we taught tasks and we taught gender roles, and tying that back into it is, walk into the house, find my wife. Like, knock the kids out the way. I'll get you in a second. You know what I mean? Stay there. You got time. Go find my wife, right? Because never understanding what is she dealing with throughout the days that she's, wearing those multitudes of hats. Lost her, I would say, her male best friend, and her dad. And how she's overcoming that, how that impacts her younger brother. And now she looks at Maverick, our child, and she sees probably a splitting image of Brahm Prasad, senior. And it's like, wow. And that shapes kind of her motherhood. It shapes her fatherhood. And I think undoubtedly your experiences and what you have endured have shaped you as a father and a husband. And I know we got to wrap up here. This is not going to be the only time that you see Stephen Quander, but Stephen, how could people benefit the cause of Kristopher's Village and give back?
Yeah, so they can reach us at christophersvillage.com. You can also reach us at Kristopher's Village on Instagram, as well as Facebook. So check us out on our website. You can donate there. We're still supporting families of kids who are battling cancer. It is a worthy cause. At the end of the day, there are a lot of families that aren't as fortunate.
Yep, absolutely.
And those that just don't know where to go. So that's what we try to do. We try to connect those dots and make sure that people can find the support that they need in that time.
A resource. Hey man, thanks for joining us again on another episode of Real Dads, Real Talk. This was a heavy one, but our goal is to provide this platform and this space for us to share stories and experiences that reach out and touches one of you. That is what our goal is to do on this platform. And I know for a fact that you touched somebody today. We've discussed the passing of children and overcoming that. But in the midst of it all, you see resiliency. You see overcoming adversity. And you see fathers and men and husbands continue to pour into their families and overcoming difficult times to continue to keep their families together, because ultimately that's what it's all about. So stay tuned. We look forward to joining you all on the next episode of Real Dads, Real Talk. Peace out.